You are listening to The Michael Lodge Show. Wealth, business, and taxes. Oh yeah, and some politics. Let's get started.
And good morning, this is Michael Lodge. I'm glad that you've joined me. Honestly, I'm happy when you guys come and listen, and you sit there. Hopefully you've got your cup of coffee. If not, I'll let you go and get some. But let's talk just a little bit, because I think, you know what, the communication process has really gone to the dogs, hasn't it? I think the dogs are communicating with each other better than Americans or human beings are communicating with each other. We seem to tend to love to sit there and text. We love to be there on Facebook. We love to send emails, but I tell you, since last year, I think that we've all just stopped communicating. The communication process has gone down the road. I think we need to get back into looking people eye to eye and talking with them and understanding what's going on in their lives, because literally when you send a text, you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what their mood is for that day. You don't know what's happened to them that day. So they get this nonsensical text from you, and they're saying, what kind of an idiot just sent me this text? This person-to-person communication has got to get better, because we have failed at it. During this so-called pandemic that we had, communication just dropped off the roadside, rolled down the hill. It's just sitting there waiting to come back and put communication back on the road so that we can start talking to each other. I'm so grateful that I have this podcast, because it helps in the communication process. I look at the people all around the world and who are listening to me, and I'm a mischief. No, that's the wrong word. I'm sorry. I am keen to know what people are thinking. And I love it when they get a text from somebody in Brazil or somebody in the Russian republics up there. I am just so amazed that they do listen. But I look at the chart because I can see exactly what countries are listening to me, where I'm being listened to across the United States. And I'm just amazed that there are people out there in Iceland listening to me, which is kind of scary, because now I have a little bit more responsibility of saying something smart, because all the rest of my podcasts have been nothing but stupid. Especially when I haven't had coffee in the morning. I mean, they're the worst comments ever made. No, I'm just kidding. I enjoy the podcasting moment that I have with you, and I enjoy getting up early in the morning to make these podcasts. So what am I going to talk about today? Well, listen, I was online last night, and I pulled up Twitter. And I have never seen so many disgusting remarks in my life. And it's so political. Everything is political. And as I look at the comments and the people who are making the comments, I'm thinking, what goes through these minds when they post something that is so mean, that is so hateful? And it's like everybody's continuing to post attacks against everybody else, no matter who you are, no matter what you say. I was interested in noting that Coca-Cola is kind of walking back their political support of, or non-support, I should say, of the new Georgia voting laws. They're kind of walking it back, and they're saying, okay, now we all need to get together and come to a common cause. I don't know what that means, except, okay, we made a mistake, we became political, and we've gotten a lot of backlash from Americans across the United States and also across the world, so now we're going to become more peaceful. The problem is that what Coca-Cola has shown the American people and people across the across the world, is that once a company adopts a political agenda, it corrupts their company. Because there are individuals who do not believe the same way as that CEO who just spouted out his mouth on politics. I've said this before, so I'm repeating myself, but I don't care because it's such an important fact that when companies begin to become political, it creates a conflict within their company. It creates conflict with outside. If you don't think companies or individuals calling for boycott of Coca-Cola is not a conflict, that's a conflict. And there's been boycotts. If you even put in the name hashtag boycott, the first thing that comes to the top is boycott Coca-Cola. So that is conflict. And there's conflict within the company too, because people who are employees, who are really good employees, who do a good job and who have been there for years, don't agree with how the president or CEO spouts out on politics. Especially when you have your corporate office right there in Georgia. I mean, that is stupid. I'm afraid that what has become is that we've got some very weak leaders in corporations that turn off the politics, but turn on the necessity of a company to act responsibly to its shareholders and to the consumer that they're providing a product or a service to. That's the whole agenda. The other agenda that they have is if they want to do a lobbying effort on a tax bill or that's going to affect them, or an employment bill, or any type of a bill that's going to affect their personal corporation, then they have individuals that go in and work for them on those issues. But to get involved in an election issue is really unethical, because now you've stepped out from being a CEO to becoming a political CEO. And that's not what investors want to see or hear from a CEO or even high-end leadership within a company. Now, there are a lot of people who want to become political because they think that that's going to push their identity up there, where they become a leader. But unfortunately, when you're in the corporate environment, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to lead that company, drive more profit, create more jobs, create more manufacturing facilities, create more services. That is what your job is as a CEO, is to focus on your company, not on a political stance. That has nothing to do with your business. The other issue that we're having is that we seem to have this high drive that everything is racial. If you do not agree with your opposing statements, people who are who are making statements against you, you automatically turn to they're racist. When not one single part of that conversation was about race. But you see, we have a difference in America now, is that racism cannot be talked about unless it's political. You see, racism has been damaged and corrupted by politics. So there's this very thin cloud that's over racism at the moment, that we can't really determine what is true racism or what is political racism. Because remember, what has happened is that the word racist has been used for every counterattack by politicians. Every time that they want something done or they want to go in their own direction, they begin shouting racism. Or you're racist, or that idea is racist, that bill is racist. Everything is now centered around the word racism. So it's no longer a true discussion of what racism is, who is being affected by racism, but it is used as a counterattack by politicians on anybody who they dislike. So we now have to call this not racism. We have to call it political racism because politics has corrupted the conversation about the true issues of racism. So we see this every single time, and Joe Biden is using it every single time. Every single thing that comes out of his mouth has something to do with racism, when it really doesn't. It's just a political ploy. So we don't have this genuine discussion any longer about what is real racism because it's been corrupted and destroyed by politicians. And it's used as an attack against other people who don't believe as that politician does. We have to be very careful in this. If there truly is an issue of racism, then let's talk about that issue. Don't cloud it up with political remarks and everything else. You sit down and you decide if there's racism going on in your community. Talk about it together and solve it. Resolve it. But don't bring in politicians because they just make it worse. So if you really want to have a genuine talk about racism, let's have that talk. And then we get to the subject of defunding the police. And we have all of these cities who are being hurt, like Austin, Texas, where a lot of liberals from San Francisco have moved in there, and they're saying defund the police. Unfortunately, when they defunded their police, now the crime rate has gone up. If we have bad employees, what do we do with those employees? We get rid of them. If you have a bad police officer, that police department needs to get rid of that bad police officer. Remove him. And make sure that he doesn't serve in any other city as a police officer. If he is truly not doing the duties of his job under the Constitution, you need to get rid of him. If he is using his authority to take it out on other people, then he needs to go. That's just how life works. Unfortunately, what has happened in government work, it's very difficult to fire government employees. So you have these individuals who are bad police officers or bad accountants or bad clerks. And it's hard to get rid of them because of how government has run their business. And unions have gotten involved, and so that union automatically begins fighting for that individual. That's what happens in government. But now it's come to the point that if you have bad employees, if you have a bad police officer, if you have a bad ER person, if you have a bad city clerk, if you just have a bad individual in the wrong job, you need to get rid of them. But we need to start thinking just a little bit about common sense here, and don't go into these mind trips of, okay, somebody said racism, so let's go out and destroy businesses. Let's go out and steal goods. Let's loot it. That's not ethical. That's not right. But politicians allow it to happen because they're afraid. And if we don't have politicians, mayors and mayors and city managers and police departments who do not have the guts to stand up to illegal activity, then we really don't have law and order. We have individuals who want to be political. They want to be politicians who want to be loved. But listen, when you're a politician, you're not loved. I'm telling you right now, you are not loved. So why don't you just do your job and do the right thing and protect law and order and protect the people who live within your communities? Stop being politicians and start being humans that think with a brain instead of with a political heart. It's worthless. I wasn't going to come on here and say all that stuff. I was really going to talk about mediation in divorce and how you can get better on it. In fact, maybe I'll still do that. Listen, you know what? I'm going to change the subject matter because, we can't be negative on these politicians all the time. If you go into Twitter and you go into Facebook, that's all that you see is negative, negative, negative. People calling each other names, and it goes on and on and on. It just doesn't change. No matter what we do, we still have individuals out there being stupid. Maybe we've all become stupid, huh? Maybe you and I are stupid too because we allow these things to happen. It's sad to see things like this happen. It's sad to see Americans always having to wake up in the morning and be affected by nonsense, by individuals who want to continue to push politics hour after hour after hour. It becomes annoying after a while. And it becomes fatigue. We all get fatigued by all of this politics. And I'm sure that you're getting fatigued by listening to me on politics also. And I hate it. I hate politics more than anything else in the world. But sometimes you just got to spill your guts and say how you feel. Otherwise, you're in the same situation, the same boat, and we as Americans have got to be able to find another way. We've got to find another way. So let's talk about, I'm going to change the subject here because I know a lot of you are going through separations, you're going through divorce, and it's a tough situation. I'm going to read this one sentence, okay? Regrets are a waste of time. Now my question to you right now is, that's a line from a movie. What movie is it from? I'm going to give you a hint, okay? And hopefully you love movies like I do. Regrets are a waste of time. So think about that as you're going through a divorce. Regrets of what has happened in the past, you're wasting time because now you got to move forward. So I'm going to give you a hint. Just a little hint of what movie it's from. And it says, how am I going to say this so that I don't give too much away? Okay. So here's the hint. It starts with a divorce, ends in Italy, where she takes a leap of faith and creates a brand new life. She refused to have any regrets on what has happened in the past because she went through a really dirty divorce. And it was a surprising divorce. She didn't know it was coming, but it happened. Where her husband was having an affair with somebody else. And he got the house, he got the furniture, he got everything. And then she met this Italian, well, not even Italian, she was a British lady that lived in Italy. And the lady said, regrets are a waste of time. Looking back, being angry, being upset is a waste of time. It's the same thing in divorce because you're going to go back and you're going to look and you're going to say, my gosh, if only I would have done this, if I would have said this, if I would have been meaner, if I would have taken this, listen, those are regrets. Those are regrets of what you should have done or you could have done. But regrets are issues of what happened during the marriage and the relationship and the communication process and everything else. And you have these regrets. Why did it happen to me? I regret every single word that I said to that person. I regret every single action that I did. I regret the issue that I cheated on her. I regret. But you see, regrets don't get you anything if you're planning for your future. If you're planning for your children. Because remember, if you have children together, you have to still work together on raising those 2 children. Or 3 children, or 4 children. Maybe you even have a dozen children. I don't know. But you still got to work together. So do you take the process of all of these regrets that you had, you know what has happened, are you going to still apply them to the relationship that you're having to deal with as a co-parent? If you are, you're wasting time. What you have to deal with is, I know that I was bad in communication, so I'm going to improve my communication skills. I know that I was bad in having the amount of hours that I should have spent with my family. I know that's wrong, so now I am going to redirect my hours that I work during the day, so I'm spending that quality time with my children. I know that in the past, I was this way, so now I'm going to change it to a positive way so that I can move forward and my children can be happy and that I can be happy as an individual because I've changed my attitude. I have so many people that walk into my office or walk into my visual office now, virtual office I should say, that are angry, and they're still angry. But they know they've got to put together a parenting agreement, but they are still angry. They still think it's the other person's fault, but they haven't looked at what they've done as an individual too, because it takes two to tango. It takes two to tango. But yet you have them there pushing and pushing up against the other side as if they are still at war. Forget about the war, because you're not going to do anything. Come on home. Come on home from the war. Create your life. Create your house. Create the life for your children. Create a new way. Now, what's so cool about this movie I'm talking about, so she goes to Italy on a tour. And it was a gay tour, and she was straight, but she was in a gay tour. And as she's going through this city in Italy, she saw a notice on the window of a real estate office that had this name of this villa that was for sale, and it was dilapidated. It needed work. It was old. And she didn't think anything more about it. And then she was on the bus, and they came to a spot in the road where there was sheep, and the sheep was blocking the road. And then what happens? She looks to the right of her, and she sees a gate, and the gate has the name of that villa that she had just seen for sale. That's a pretty good sign, right? So she stopped the bus. And people were saying, what is she doing? She's stopping the bus way out here in the countryside of Florence and looking at this villa. And she had her bag, and she trailed it in over the weeds and everything else that had grown in the way of the path to the door of this villa. When she got into the door, she met the old lady who owned the house. And the lady said, I'm not going to sell to you unless I see a sign. And the woman that was looking at the house, she goes, a sign, I believe in signs also. And what happens? A bird poops on her. And the old lady goes, that's a sign, that's a sign. So she sold her the house. On a leap of faith, she got out of that bus and she went in and she created a brand new life, and she began cleaning up that house and making repairs on it, and pretty soon it was a beautiful villa. And then she had a dream that she told her realtor. She says, I had a dream that I would build this house, I would make this house, and there would be a wedding here, and there'd be a family here. But what happens if that doesn't happen? Well, then in a few months later, her best friend comes from San Francisco and she's pregnant. And then she had a young man that was working for her that on the house that was in love with this local girl. The baby was born. The two children got married. So she got a wish. She had a wedding at the house. She had a family with the little baby at the house. She took a leap of faith and she made her life change. And along the way, she didn't see that what she had wished for was actually coming to pass. It was coming true. And then she found love. And of course, like every other Hollywood movie, they lived happily ever after in this house that used to be broken down just as she was. This house that was fixed up and rebuilt just as how she was refixed and rebuilt her own life. Just because you're going through a divorce doesn't mean that you can't find that place in Italy that you can rebuild and rebuild yourself. You cannot, you have the ability to redesign yourself, to make yourself better, to make yourself a mature individual that doesn't take things so seriously anymore. That you're not mad anymore. That you're not upset. Because you've exchanged that past history with a new forward-looking history. And if you do that approach, you will have a good parenting plan. You will have a good relationship on communication with the other parent. And you can move on with your life. You see, moving on is so very important. You just can't keep hating that individual that was in your life before. You can change your life. You can go to Italy if you want to. You can buy that old villa and you can fix it up. And you can become better. The point is that we are, each and every single one of us, we are all fixable. Listen, in my life, I have gone through some really bad crises. I didn't think I was going to get out of them. I didn't think I was even going to survive. But I did because I focused on what I needed to do and make my steps better in life. And pretty soon I look back now, and I don't even think about that crisis unless I'm giving a lecture to you guys. Then I remember it. Because it taught me so much. That crisis taught me so much about being this human being. And so when you're going through a divorce, it's a crisis of your own. But be the movie. Become the movie. Create a new life for yourself. Don't always hang on regrets of what you have done in the past, because if you hang there, you're going to become a very depressed woman. Even in the movie, her friends were saying, "We're afraid for you because we think you're living on a dangerous road. You're always thinking, you're regretting of what happened, but you're not moving on." Move on. Build your villa. If you're in Sacramento, build it there. If you're in South Florida, build it there. You can rebuild again. And I guarantee you, you will be a much happier, much better individual because you built your own villa. Listen, if you have any questions or comments, send me a text at 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682. If you would like to help me out on my podcast, if you like the content, this is what you do. Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. Again, that's www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. Listen, I have to go now. I have to go build my own villa. I have a lot of work to do on my desk. Those are the foundations of my villa. Work. I want everybody to go out there. Have a great day. Let me know what you think. I love hearing from you guys. And the more I hear from you, the better I am. This is Mike Lodge. Bye-bye. This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content. And God bless everyone.